Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Talking Sass. And thank you guys so much for joining me. You know what? If you guys could do me a huge favor starting off, if you are watching on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, make sure you go and hit that subscribe button. It is so important and I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, whichever it happens to be, make sure you go rate and review Talking Sass and give it 5 stars, please. Now, you guys, this week I have a stellar lineup for you. I have two guests, so don't forget to stick around to the very end because Dan Murphy is going to be on and he is going to be giving us our monthly pro wrestling history lesson. And just so you guys know, he had his book come out this week, The Wrestler's Wrestler. I know I ordered mine on Amazon, but you can get yours wherever you order your books from or happen to go to the store and get. And I really cannot wait for this book to land on my doorstep so that I can crack it open. So make sure you guys go and check that out. Again, it's Dan Murphy's book, A Wrestler's Wrestler. Now, before I talk about my other guest who I'm super stoked to have on the show, let's talk about patreon.com/sassysteffi. For only $2 a month, it starts there and goes up different tiers. You get so much great content. So make sure you guys go and check that out because it's a lot of fun and I don't think you're going to regret it. Once again, patreon.com/sassysteffi. Now, if you want to follow along and see what I'm up to on a daily basis, or if you like to see what I'm tweeting about, whatever wrestling's going on every weekday night now, you guys can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at SassySteffi. Now, on to this week's guest. Like I said, I'm really excited to have him on. He is one of my longest friends that I've had in professional wrestling. I've known him for, we talk about it, I think almost 18 years now, which is quite a bit, right? But he is a rapper. He is a producer. He is a professional power lifter. He is a Slammy Award winner. He was part of Floyd Mayweather's team for WrestleMania 24. And he is a member of Nexus. This is Michael Tarver. Hey guys, I am sitting here with the one and only, you guys know him as Michael Tarver, but I've known him from his very first match ever as Tyrone Evans. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so good to be here with you, man. This is awesome. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you could be here. And like I said, I've known you since your very first day in wrestling. This is
Wow.
what, 17, 18 years ago now?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy
Yeah.
how far and time goes. And you're a Florida guy now. I'm a Canada girl now. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Well, let's go back and talk about that because
Okay.
in those 17, 18 years ago, whatever it was,
Yeah.
I think I was still a fan at that time. I didn't start ring announcing for them yet. And you come in, we're in this tiny ass bar in
Shamrock.
Barberton, Ohio.
Barberton. Yep.
Yes, for those who don't know where Barberton is, it's like this much south of Akron.
Basically.
And it was a weekly show on Tuesday nights. And I've told the story many times about how I was a DJ at a bowling alley, going to the show weekly. And then Keith Young, who is one of the commentators, actually got me to become one of the ring announcers there. But you came in and you wrestled Eddie Insane on your first match.
Wow.
Yeah. How many people were in that crowd that day, do you think?
Oh my God. Not many. Maybe 20 or 30. What's crazy? That was my first day in business. That was my first ever day.
What?
I promise so I had called John Potok. I don't know if you remember John,
Yes.
right? So the story is I saw a commercial for UWC on TV because they had local access television. And Purple Hooter was their world champ, right? So I remember seeing it thinking, what? That's their champ. I could kill that guy, because I wasn't smart to the business. So I finally decided to go down. I called the number and, told John, I'm like, football player, played arena football and all of this and all of that. And he's like, all right, come on down. So I went down to the Shamrock and I remember I walked in and everyone was in the ring. And I remember seeing BJ Payne and Hooter were in the ring working on the match. There was a bunch of other guys, but in particular, I remember BJ Payne and Hooter. And I remember watching them thinking, wait, that's not what I thought this was. I got intimidated
Yeah.
while watching them go over the matches. And I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do that. But I was a wrestling fan, lifelong fan. And so I met John. He's like, whoa, you're pretty big. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, thanks, whatever, And he said, well, what can you do? So I was like, I don't know. I've never done this before. So was taught how to take some bumps really quick. I did like a horrible back bump, then did a horrible, flip bump and almost broke my neck, and it was horrible. And then I was put in my first match with Eddie Insane. And I remember I wore an NWO Wolfpack t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do all of Goldberg's moves. I was such a mark. Oh, it was horrible. Then I got squashed in 3 minutes.
I didn't even know that you didn't have any previous training compared to before that day.
None. Not 1 second of training. That was my first day. Yeah. Yep.
Now, for those who don't know, because like he said, a very select few went to these shows. I'm talking sometimes there was maybe 5 people in the audience.
Yes.
Now, shows that would have maybe 100. It was not a very large bar. It was a small bar. Yeah. But it was every Tuesday night. It was a blast. Like I said, I started as a fan going every week. I wasn't even 21 yet. Oh my God, I'm aging.
I remember, you were young.
Yeah, and because I had to call the bar and ask them if I could even come to the show because I wasn't sure. Like I didn't see the TV show or anything like that. I just, because I lived nearby, I saw the sign that said live pro wrestling every week. And I was like, can I even, go into this? And they're like, yeah, you can come. You just have to leave right after the show. And I was like, yeah, okay, no problem, whatever, And then of course, as wrestlers always do, even though I wasn't a wrestler at that time, we hung around into the parking lot until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
I remember that. I remember the park. Oh my God. Wow. Oh, so many memories.
Yeah. Do you know the Shamrock's actually not there anymore?
Yes. Yeah. I went to the site 2 years ago when I was up in Ohio. My youngest daughter had a basketball tournament at the new Barberton High School.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. I didn't realize where I was. So I took my sons and we drove around and I went looking for it and couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is where I had my first ever wrestling match. Around the corner, yep. Yeah. And it's gone. Yeah. It's gone.
Right before I moved, I drove by and it was a pile of bricks. Like the crane was still there, knocking it down. I'm going to have to see if I have the pictures because I know I took pictures because I'm like, okay, even though it was a shady, totally easy bar, like, there was so many great memories. And of course, you came from there.
Oh,
and
man.
There's tons of other people who at that time were really starting to pay their dues at this little tiny bar in Barberton, Ohio.
Yeah. So many people came through there.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of
a lot of people.
I can't think of any of the names off the top of my head, but I know there's quite a few. Ray Rowe.
Hutter, Ray Rowe, he came through there. I worked with Hutter.
Ray Rowe is there. Yeah.
What's his name? Eric, I think it is, with the Raiders.
Eric with the Viking Raiders.
Viking Raiders, yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, you said EC3. Yeah, there's a lot of, let's talk about it because, I don't feel like Ohio as a whole, but especially Northeast Ohio, gets credit for the amount of amazing wrestlers. I'm not even talking about myself. Like, I'm talking about everybody else.
You were pretty amazing.
That area.
You were pretty amazing. You were pretty good. That was a big
thank you. But I haven't been wrestling for quite a bit of time. But we're talking, like you said, EC3 from there.
Yeah.
Eric from the Viking Raiders is from there. I know, even though she didn't participate in the bar, Dana Brooks is from Northeast Ohio as well. Yeah. It's crazy. These are just 3 people I named from, WWE.
M-Dog, Matt Cross, M-Dog 20.
Yeah, M-Dog.
A lot of people, man. A lot of people.
Yeah, I could sit here and list names all day long, but of course, you obviously broke out of that tiny little bar in Ohio.
God, it was weird. Was weird.
But let's talk, because you had a very short, compared to other people, independent career. So how did that lead you into FCW and then NXT and WWE, and how that story progresses?
Well, this is a crazy story. So it kind of almost similarly happened the same way it happened at the Shamrock. So I had only worked for about 4 years on the Indies before I got my contract. And who was I talking to? It was a couple of guys at UWC shows. They're like, yo, you should really go try to be an extra. Because remember, Johnny Gargano, it's another one, Johnny Gargano.
Yeah, Johnny Gargano, of course. Gargano.
And he was doing a lot of extra talent work up there. And I remember seeing him on TV. I remember he had did the match with MVP dressed up as the Leprechaun.
Yes.
And I was like, what the? Like, I got to get up there. I want my shot. I was just so determined, right? And so I can't remember who it was. It was John McChesney. He was booked. He did a lot of extra talent work. And I remember he was booked for a spot on SmackDown in 2007, December 2007. And he was saying, hey, they need big guys. You should go up there and, try to get a spot. So I decided, all right, I'm just going to try it. So I remember, I don't know if you remember Drew Taylor, Smart Mark Drew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So him and I were like super close. And I told him about it. He was like, I'm driving you up there. We're going to go. I was like, okay, let's go. So I remember him and I got in the car from Youngstown at like, I don't know, 5 a.m. or something like that, drove up to Rochester, New York. And we're on the way there. And I see SJK. I see him, like we see him at a freaking rest stop. And then when I get there, so many people, like Brody Lee was there, rest in peace. He was there. So much talent. Who else was there? Mike Tolar was there. I don't know if you Mike Tolar is, but he was
Mike Tolar.
I actually wrestled him. Him and I got in the ring together. It was so funny. But a bunch of people were there. And so what happened was I just walked in. I wasn't booked.
Oh, really?
I walked in. Yeah. I've told the story a few times. I don't know if it got back to WWE, but I literally just walked in and signed the waivers and walked in. I was like, extra talent. And they're like, okay, go this way. So I'm like, okay, I guess this is meant to be. We go to extra talent, change, go to the ring, go to catering. And I'm literally standing there and Jamie Noble, I think it was Jamie Noble. He just points at me, goes, you, get in ring. It was me and Mike Tolar. And him and I were actually talking for like 20 minutes before that, prior. And he was saying he was from Cleveland and everything. And he knew, all the people he knew. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So we get in the ring and just have this impromptu match. And I remember this basically was what we did when I was there. So when, tryouts would have matches or whatever, we would just, rib them and talk trash and laugh, make fun of them. So I remember in the ring, and I'm like nervous. I'm so nervous. I remember like Edge and Mark Henry and all of these superstars I'd only seen on TV. They're like taunting me and making fun of me. So I'm putting the clubs on Mike, just, beating him down. And I look up and I go, shut up, like loud, like trying to heal out. And they all go, oh, this kid thinks he's a star. I thought I was doing the right thing, right? So I'm thinking, all right, okay, I did the right thing. I'm good. I slide out the ring and Johnny Ace walks up to me. He's like, no, not Johnny Ace. Mark Carrano walks up to me. He's like, hey, come with me. Johnny wants to talk to you. And I'd seen Johnny around the ring. And I remember SJK was like, that's the guy you want to talk to. That's Johnny Ace. I'm like, okay, all right. So, and I saw him around the ring, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But then Carrano was like, hey, Johnny wants to talk to you. Come with me. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and it gets even funnier. So I'm walking through the corridor and it's freezing cold because it's December in Rochester, New York. And he leads me down this long hallway and he sits me in a chair and there's an open door and Johnny's in the office on the phone. He goes, just wait here. He wants to talk to you. I said, okay, cool. I'm sitting there. I look up and Batista comes walking down the hallway. And this is before I met him. And I'm like, oh my God, it's freaking Batista. So I just jump up and I shake his hand. I'm like, nice to meet you. Here's my name. He's like, okay, kid, nice to meet you too. Mind you, I'm like exhausted. My heart is beating. I'm out of breath. Like I'm about to like pass out because I was so nervous. Then the next person that walks down the hallway is the freaking Undertaker. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. So I just stood up, stopped in his tracks, shook his hand. I'm like, how you doing, sir? My name is blah, blah. He's like, okay, kid, nice to meet you. Walks in, talks to Johnny. And the third person who walks down was Vince McMahon himself. So, right. So I stood up and I'm like, said the same thing, whatever. And they all three walk into the office and they all kind of look at me as they're walking out. And I'm like, what is happening here? I just met freaking The Undertaker and Batista. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I go into the office and Johnny pulls me in and he already knew about me. And I'm like, this is when I learned that WWE does their homework. They watch everyone. And it's like, I saw you did some work in in Philly and all of that. And, you tell me about your tattoos, and I can tell you're not on the gas and you're in good shape. I'm like, okay. And he's like telling me about matches that I had before I got there. I'm like, how did you know about that? And so then he's like, I'm going to send you down to OVW. And I'm like, OVW? And, back then it was like, that was, the freaking golden goose. I'm like, yeah, let me think about that for a second. I'm like, inside, I'm like, yeah. But I'm like, just sitting there like, sure, yeah, cool. That would be great. Sure, no problem, sir. I'm like, oh my goodness. So, and I remember I leave the office and I go down to find Drew, and we find a little corner, right? When we sit down, I said, Drew, I said, bro, they're sending me to OVW. Him and I both sat there and cried. Like, no lie.
Of course.
We literally sat together and cried. Like, he was like, you did it. Like, you freaking did it. I'm like, dude, I wouldn't be here without you. Like, we just hugged and cried, and the rest is history.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah. It was nuts.
Like, I know when I had my extra work, like I did a few shows myself, like I prepared for 2 to 3 weeks in advance, sometimes longer if I knew like way in advance I was going to get the opportunity. But I had to get blood work, I had to get a physical. There's all the demand of you. And you literally walk in the door, Jamie Noble tells you to jump in the ring.
Jump in the ring.
Out of the ring, and you're mind blown.
It's funny. People don't believe me, but like that was the actual way it happened. Like real deals. WWE's probably heard it's like he'll never come back again. Well, yeah, whatever. But yeah, that's how it happened. So crazy.
Nuts.
Yeah. It was definitely meant to be. That's for sure.
I would say so. I mean, I've known you, like I said, this many long years. I haven't seen you a lot of up and down the road for quite a long time, but I mean, I've never heard that story, and that's amazing.
Yeah. It was nuts.
I mean, that says so much about the talent that you have, though, I would say as well. Like, just for you to jump in the ring, not even supposed to be there, you jump out, and they're like, oh, we already know about this, and you're hired.
Yeah, it was crazy. And what's funny too is, so that was the night that Colin Delaney got hired, when they started the gimmick with him and Tommy Dreamer, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, see,
that was like, because he was there.
I'd absolutely love to have on here is Colin Delaney. Such a great person.
Extremely talented too. Yeah.
Yes.
And he ended up taking John McChesney's spot because it was supposed to be John McChesney.
Oh, nuts.
Yeah. So many memories I forgot about. But yeah, it was supposed to be John McChesney, and Colin Delaney was there, and he ended up filling in and freaking got hired that night. It was, and then he just ended up doing really well on ECW.
Yeah, he did extremely well.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah,
crazy. Like, I had no idea. That's just nuts, and I love it. But so you go, they tell you you're going to OVW. How long was it? I mean, obviously you're in the Northeast Ohio area at that time. So to go to OVW, it's only a couple hours away. But what was that transition like? Did you have a couple of weeks? Did you have a couple of months? What was the...
So it was actually pretty quick, actually. So I went to SmackDown on December 18th in 2007, and they sent me to OVW the first week of January. So it was like the 1st through the 7th of January 2008. So it was like the turnaround was pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, I'm surprised. But I mean, again, you didn't live that far away either.
No. And it was oh God, the OVW story was crazy too. So I drive down there and I'm just like blown away. I drive to OVW and I'm just like nervous, and I get my hotel room, and I go there the first day, and I walk in, all the OVW guys, and they were really cool, really welcoming, really, really nice. I didn't know what to expect. And I meet everyone, and that was a Monday, I think it was. On a Tuesday, I had my first day, and I ended up, they were doing drills, and like blow up drills, and like doing kind of psychology drills. And there was Al Snow and Danny Davis, and I think it was one other person. And Bruce Pritchard was there. And and I just volunteered and jumped into a drill. And like the drill was, you have to, what was it? It was like you had to do something with 5 moves. You had to use 5 moves to, I can't remember what it was, but it was a psychology drill. Like, it wasn't just to do a bunch of spots. It was you have to connect the 5 moves together. I don't know. It was just something like to that nature, but I just volunteered and jumped in. And it was Bam Neely. That was his name on ECW. It was him and I in the drill. So I just jumped in. He was like, all right, kid, just follow me. I said, okay, no problem. So I'm following him. I'm hawking up, doing all my crazy, antics. And they were like, okay, this kid jumped in the drill. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And he was super cool. Like, and I kind of got over with everyone. And then I had my first match was with Ace Steel, I think his name is. That's the guy that trained Cabana and Punk.
Yeah.
And he was still there. And so I had a match with him, and I just followed him, and it went okay. I just was nervous, whatever. And then that night, I had a match. They had a house show, and then they put me on a match with I can't remember. I think it was Ace Steel, and it went okay, So, but I felt like I was like, all right, I'm like, I gotta do something. Like I gotta do something. So I literally went there the next day early and just I'll never forget. I laid in the middle of the ring, and I remember telling myself, all right, I have to do something. Like I can't let this slip away. I got to do something. I'm just too determined. Can't let it slip away. So then they had promo class, and that's my strong suit.
Definitely.
So, and thank you, I appreciate it. I remember it was Timmy Baltimore, and he was interviewing me. He was interviewing everyone. It was like a post match, step in the ring, Timmy Baltimore, and he's freaking amazing. And he, this is so and so. And I remember I did this freaking promo for like 15 minutes, and I was doing like the whole Black Panther gimmick I was doing in AIW.
Yeah. Big change of vowel there.
yeah, right. AEW. Yeah. AIW in Cleveland. And I'm like, and it was just, and the promo was like legendary. Like it just got over huge, and everybody was like mouth dropped, like, I got a standing ovation, like, who is this kid, right? And then that night, they did their TV tapings on Wednesdays. So that night, I had a dark match with Drew McIntyre. Okay. And we ended up having a great match. He gave me a lot of offense, too. Like, him and I ended up becoming super cool. But, like, he gave me a whole, like, I'm, like, suplexing him all over the place. And then I ended, and then he beat me down. But he ended up I put him over, of course. And so the match was impressive. Got over. And then I think I had, like, one other match with Sean Spears. And then I had to go do like some shows, and I had a match. I can't remember who it was, and then I had to do some shows in Nashville. So I went and did the shows in Nashville, and then Al Snow asked me, "Will you be willing to come back?" I was like, "I got to go to Nashville." He's like, "No, do your shows in Nashville." And my time was up. Like I didn't have anywhere to stay or whatever. Like it was only until Thursday of that week. And it's like, I want you to stay and do a few more matches. I'm like, really? I was like, but I'm booked. I'll stay. He's like, no, don't ever step bookings. Don't do that. I'm like, you're right. And it's like, well, I can stop on my way back on the way up to Akron. He said, do that. So sure enough, I did my 2 shows in Nashville and stopped in Louisville on the way back up to Akron and did an extra show. And that's where I worked with Sean Spears, and then went back up to Ohio. And then I was nervous, and I was like, oh my God, I hope I got it. What happened? And I called Danny Davis, and he was like, they're going to hire you. Just wait for a phone call. You did right. They're very impressed. I'm like, really? Sure enough, maybe this was like early February. Yeah, early February. I get a call from, what was it? Ty Bailey. I got a call from Ty Bailey, who was the talent relations assistant at the time. And yeah, he was like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and hire you. He said, we're gonna move you to Tampa. And I'm like, did you say Tampa? Sounded like you said Tampa. And he said, yeah, we're gonna move you to Tampa. Exactly right. I was like, but I wanted to live in Florida my whole life. I had never been to Florida. So I had always wanted to live in Florida. Right. And I remember I was like, all right, hold on 1 second. I literally put the phone down. I was like, like yelling and screaming. And then they mailed me this freaking Bible. It was like the thick as a Bible. All these papers, like I had to get signed, and I had to get tested, and all of, like it was just I had to get notarized. There's so many things I had to get done. Wow. And then I remember I was in a movie. I went to a movie. It was like February 9th or something like that. And then I got a call again from Ty Bailey. It's like, hey, where are you? I need to talk to you for a second. I was like, I'm in a movie. So I got up, walked out the movie, said, we got a spot for you on Mania. And I said, sounded like you said we have a spot for you on Mania. He said, yeah, we got a spot for you on Mania. Just, stay tuned. Don't, kayfabe, whatever, we'll get down here as soon as you can. So I'm like, oh my goodness, what is happening? It ended up being the Floyd Mayweather.
Yes. And I wanted to talk to you about that. I mean,
yeah,
you're not, I mean, you just officially get signed.
Yeah.
You're called to go to WWE WrestleMania 24.
Yeah.
And you're part of Floyd Mayweather's team that escorts into the ring. How was it? I mean, first of all, I mean, there's so many questions I have. How was it working WrestleMania? How was it working with Floyd? I mean, it goes on and on.
Oh my goodness. So Floyd Mayweather is one of the most interesting people ever. What happened was they had a lot of his like shoot entourage when they were doing the TV spots, and they obviously don't know how to work, and they don't know that it's a work, and they're from the hood. They're his like real shoot bodyguards, like to really protect them. So they don't realize that the wrestlers, it's a work, that it's not, they're not really trying to hurt Floyd Mayweather. It's a show.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of a lot of stuff going on. They were like, we need to get, some talent in there so they understand. And, I guess what perfect way to do it was to take a couple guys from developmental that no one's ever seen before, dress them as Floyd's entourage. That way they're smart to the work and everything's safe. And it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like I remember being at home going, is that Tyrone?
Yeah. Yeah, I got that a lot actually. A lot of people were like, were you just on WrestleMania? I was like, yeah.
Floyd Money Mayweather?
Oh. Yeah, it was oh my God. So so many stories. Like we spent all day. So I got so much heat. I flew down I'll never forget this, March 25th, which was a Tuesday. I finally flew down to Tampa, right? I moved down there, and by that Sunday, which is the 28th, I was freaking main event WrestleMania. I was there for my first week on the job, right?
Crazy.
I got so much heat. Oh, I got so much heat.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then all of the talent, we had to report to Orlando, and they had booked us all in hotels or whatever. But then they took the 4 guys that were in the show and they booked us in like special hotels. We're riding around in limousines, and so they were like, they wanted to keep the work, alive to everyone, like the complete kayfabe. So we're like literally riding around with Floyd Mayweather in his camp for like 2 days straight, like in limos and all of that. Yeah, it was insane. And then we're doing rehearsals and all of that. So we're at the actual show. I'll never forget this. So I'm standing behind the arena outside, and all of the fireworks and all of that. It was just mesmerizing. I'm having a conversation with Rey Mysterio and Umaga. God rest his soul. I remember breaking down into tears, like looking at them, telling them, dude, I was homeless when I signed this contract. And that's a shoot. Like I was homeless. And I was like, I was homeless when I signed this contract and came here, like, and look where I am, like, look what I'm talking. And they were like super cool. Like, it was like, all right, kid, we can tell you really, this means a lot to you. I was like, I can't even, like, you don't know, like, I can't even tell you how much. And I remember walking up to Ric Flair right after his match with Shawn Michaels, and like with tears in my eyes, just shaking his hand and saying, thank you. Like, I was just like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I was like sobbing, like, oh man, and Shawn Michaels, like, but I just remember seeing Flair like taking his tape off, and I was like, thank you, like, thank you. All I could think of was just thank you. He's
that is my favorite match of all time. So like I would have been in the same shoes as you, just like, oh my God, thank you so much.
Yeah. It was amazing, man. And then when we walked out to that ring, oh my God, like it was to be in front of 80,000 people. It was electrifying, but it was warm. I had this warm sensation. It was like this really, how do I explain it? Like this soft blanket of energy, and it was warm. And it was like everyone was moving in slow motion because it was so many people. And that was my first time seeing that many people or being in front of that many people. I've done plenty of times since, but I'm looking around like, oh my God, like everyone was like in slow motion, and it was just so loud. It was quiet, and I was like, this is what I'm here for. So we freaking go. We're acting crazy like thugs, and whatever, and freaking Big Show chucks me into the freaking guardrail. Oh, it was just electric, man. It was amazing. Amazing.
I bet in that moment you probably didn't feel that guardrail, but I bet you felt it the days coming.
I sure did. Let me tell you, I was sore, but I didn't even care, man.
Right.
It was just mesmerizing. It was I can't even, such a wonderful time, man. And like in the beginning of my time there, it just went great. It didn't end so well, but it was just amazing.
Well, let's talk about that some more because I mean, right after that, you go and they start the WWE Nexus or NXT show. You're hooked up with your leader, which is Carlito. And there's the whole show that goes on. Now, you guys were just picked out of developmental, right? It wasn't like anything specific.
Yeah. So I was in developmental for about 2 years before NXT, and my early time there, things were going really well, actually. Like I was getting booked pretty high, and there was a lot of really high aspirations and expectations. Like I was very surprised because I wasn't really getting that in Cleveland. Had some, a lot of negativity in Cleveland to getting to WWE and being booked and being treated, and it changed over time. But, I ended up, like Dusty became the one of like the creative directors of FCW, and he came down to help. And I got over really quickly with him with my promos, and he just like named himself my mentor. So him and I got like super close. And then it got to a point where I was like writing promos for a lot of the talent there because they saw that I was over with Dusty.
Wow.
Like a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, I was writing promos for a lot of people.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's but I appreciated it. I loved it. Like I still write promos for some people now, not at WWE, but there's a few people I'm really cool with, and they're like, hey, send me something. So I send them a promo or give them ideas. But Dusty, God bless his soul, man. He was so good to me. And largely in part because of him, I got some of the opportunities I got, and I ended up with a pretty good sized story with Justin Gabriel for the FCW title. And I was pretty close to really having a shot to go over for it. And then right when that storyline was kind of ending, that was when Wade Barrett came back from his injury, and then boom, next thing you know, Johnny Ace is like, we got an idea for a new show. It's a reality show. NXT was born. And then they picked, the 8 of us that they picked it, and Brian Danielson had just signed with WWE, and the rest is history, 2010.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about that because you guys come in, well, of course you do the show. The show's fun, but you kind of stand out in a different way on the show because you refuse to do some of these like challenges that the other guys are doing. So what was that like a storyline that you were doing, or was it because you wanted to stand out, you decided to do something completely different on your own?
It was exactly that. I chose to stand out. So the irony of how WWE works, you could be the man or the woman in developmental and get to the main roster and be and it doesn't matter how good you are, if one of the main roster people there don't like you, they will do everything they can to bury you. And I got buried when we got to NXT. Like, because I was like on the top of the mountain. It was me and Wade Barrett and Justin Gabriel, and a couple other guys, and Heath Slater. That was one of the top guys in developmental. And then I got to main roster and just got buried. And I saw it. So I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? What can I do? What can I do? And there was a lot of crap behind the scenes, a whole lot of crap. But I just dealt with it, got through it. So when they started the challenges, I said to myself, all right, how am I supposed to stand out? And they kept telling us, get yourself over, get yourself over. So I said, all right, everyone's trying to do these challenges. The challenges are kind of a shoot, like they want you to try to win the challenge. And then, because they were basically flying by the seat of their pants writing the show. Each week, they were literally just writing the show.
Wow.
Right. And so they were telling us, we want it to be spontaneous. So do certain things, like just don't be scared, do things, So I started not doing the challenges and creating my own story and getting over. Or like when Matt Striker would walk by, and I would smarten Matt Striker up to it. I would tell him like, hey, I'm gonna snatch the mic. Is that cool? He said, all right, just make it really quick. I'm just, just you got about 1 minute before we get hot. So I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So then he
Yeah.
would position himself, and I would just take the mic and do an impromptu promo, and then he would snatch it back. But he was really good to me. Like he really helped me out, which I will always be indebted to Matt Striker for that. But yeah, so I saw how things are going, and I just intentionally found creative ways to not do the challenges to make myself the heel,
Yeah.
and everyone was trying to be the good guy, the baby face. So I'm like, well, why don't I go the opposite direction? And it worked.
Yeah. Well, of course, you always have to have your villain to your superhero,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
yeah.
everybody's trying to be the baby face, the easiest thing to do is be the heel.
The
Make
smartest thing to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the show ends, how does it develop that the eight of you guys become Nexus and
Oh,
decide? Well, not I shouldn't say you guys decide, because obviously
oh,
you're no longer in a reality show. You're on you're on Monday Night Raw.
we're on Monday Night Raw. Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys go
Oh,
in, disrupt John Cena and CM Punk, two of the
oh,
biggest names in professional wrestling of all time, and you
ever.
guys are debuting,
Yeah.
and you come in, destroy them, and then
Yeah.
destroy the ring, the
Oh,
the everywhere. You destroy everything. How does that come
man.
to be?
Oh my goodness. What another story. So we're okay. So we're all
I love your
I
stories.
oh yeah. Thank you. So Brian and I get eliminated first.
Mhm.
And then they start the eliminations, and I back in developmental, and I don't know where Brian went, but I was back in developmental, and then they played mind games there. So I'm like, they was, starting the understanding that it's a reality show, it's work. But then they started kind of playing mind games like, well, no, you might get released. I'm like, over work? Like, what is a what? What is a reality show? What? I was so pissed off. Like, how are you gonna lie to me and tell me these things? So I'm in developmental, like losing my mind, like the things I know now, if I'd have known then,
Of
but
course, hindsight, right?
right. So they bring us back. We were in Buffalo for the last episode of the first season of NXT, and we were sitting in the crowd, and like they had the last three, it was like Otunga, Justin Gabriel, and Wade Barrett. Then they finish the show. Wade Barrett wins the show, whatever,
Mhm.
and then he's guaranteed a match. The next week was in Miami. The next week of Raw.
Mhm.
So we get travel, and I'm like, what? I got travel? I'm like, why am I getting travel? So I'm like, all right, be in Miami. So okay, and the following Tuesday was Tampa, was the debut of season 2.
Mhm.
So we had no idea why we needed to be in Miami. So we get there, and we're hanging out, we're chilling or whatever. The first season, we get called into an office, and we walk in the office. All the producers, Vince is in there. I believe Cena was in the office, and John Laurinaitis and everyone. So they start handing out these armbands, these black and yellow armbands. And we're like, what are these? They proceed to tell us this is what we're doing. They didn't even have the name Nexus yet. They hadn't even come up with that yet.
Wow.
So yeah, that didn't even come up. Like we didn't even know our name was Nexus until someone said it in an interview. Like they were talking about it's like those rookies are with the next. What do they call themselves? The Nexus. We were like, that's our name. Okay, I guess that's our name. Yeah, it was crazy. So they're like, all right, this is what you have to do. You're going to go out there. You're going to have your cues. We're going to do everything. You're going to destroy everything. You're going to beat up everyone. You're going to break everything, break every camera, blah, blah. We're like, what? They're like,
Yeah.
no, break everything. Like, if you don't do it, you're fired. We're like, yes, sir, no problem. We're breaking everything. And they were like, the security's going to come. And some of them aren't smart to it. So they're going to think it's a shoot on them, beat them up. If anybody stops you, beat them up, whatever, everyone's getting bonuses. Don't worry about it, whatever. This has to be the most knee-jerk, shocking moment that we can do. We're like, okay, no problem. So Cena gives us our cue, and all of them punking everyone. So, what they told us, like, you are not allowed to tell anyone. This has to be a 100%, like, just kayfabe, even the talent. No one could know.
Mhm.
So we end up doing rehearsal. They kicked everyone out of the arena, put up like tarps around the ring, and we're like rehearsing. Oh yeah, it was nuts. Like they kicked all of the talent out. So the talent were like, okay, so wrestlers are nosy.
Yeah.
So they were telling us like people are going to walk up to you and test you and ask you what's going on. You better not tell them. If you tell anyone, you're fired. We're like, okay, no problem. So we're like walking around. I remember like Matt Hardy walked up to me and I was like, can't really talk about it. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And so here it is. And then all of the talent were told they're not allowed to leave because you know how it is. Once the main is on,
Yeah.
talent are allowed to start funneling to their rental cars or whatever. And then they do the dark main and all of that. And I remember that was the night they had the A Team. They had the movie The A Team was coming out, and that was when it had a Rampage Jackson was on the show. And I was such a mark. I wanted to meet him. It was so cool. So I got to meet Rampage.
That's
Remember, I
awesome.
used to wear the big chain. I was such a Rampage mark. But and I met him, and I was so disappointed at how small he was. He was really small,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah,
He
he's
doesn't
really
look like he would be
small.
very small.
Oh no, he doesn't until you meet him, and he's like half. I was like, you're small, but super cool dude, man. So here it is, like what the show ended at 10 back then. So here it is, like 9:45, and we're all like in our gear, oiled up, getting pumped up, and all of the talent looking at us like, what are you guys doing? The show's over. And we're like, photo shoot. Yeah, we're doing a photo shoot, right? Trying to find a lie that we could tell them. Literally, we were all telling them, yeah, we're doing a photo shoot. They're like, this late? All right, whatever. Stranger things have happened, right?
Yeah.
So we all disappear and they put us in our spots. And I'll never forget. And I had wore the mask. First time I wore the mask was in England on NXT, but then I decided to wear it, for the Nexus thing. And I'll never forget. I walk out. I took my spot. I'm like by the guardrail, and I remember a lady turns and looks up at me and screams like, ah! Like she just was terrified. And I just kind of looked at her. It was the fun. Like everyone's like, oh my god. Ah! And then when I got my cue, I jumped the guardrail, and then Stu was already down, and then everyone jumping out. What is this? Oh my god! And the rest is history. We're just like beating up everything, and I remember like this lady like grabbed the bell, and was like ringing from the fan, like the stand was ringing the bell because everyone was terrified, and then like people were like trying to jump in, the security trying to keep people out the ring. This is stuff you didn't see on TV. Like fans
Yeah.
were trying to help everyone, John Cena and them, and we're like punching out everybody, beating everybody up, and oh, it was nuts. It was just an insane night, just crazy weekend.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy. What a great
yeah,
story though I mean,
uh,
your debut, you come in and you make this just colossal debut and just
yeah.
leave everybody like, what just happened?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Everyone has so many questions,
Of
so
course.
many questions. Yeah.
So, like, let's say the next day or whenever SmackDown was taped at that time, were you guys
Oh,
there? Did you guys have a lot of questions to answer when you went into the building for the first time the next
oh
time?
yeah. So we were it was Tampa the next day.
Yeah.
We walk in like, what just happened? It was on that thing was on. It wasn't just on. It was like on mainstream media. Like I think I
Yeah.
was told it was on ESPN. Like it was news everywhere. Like what just happened on WWE? Like these guys just destroyed the ring and whatever. Everyone's like, what was that? Why did you tell us? And we're like, we don't know. We were told we weren't allowed. It was just, it was crazy, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So, I mean, obviously, you guys, you had a bit of a time there, and then you
yeah,
end up getting injured,
yes.
and you're written off TV for a bit, so you can go and get yourself healthy. What
Mm.
happened from that point?
Oh, oh. Well, this is where it gets a little spicy. So, like, I had,
Hey,
my God, it started with my forearm. Was it my forearm first? No, it wasn't a forearm. So, we were doing a live event. We did a house show in Toronto, and I tore my groin climbing into the ring, of all things. But
that's
yeah, I was like,
unfortunate.
yeah, and it was, we were, it was Nexus, and we had I want to say Jericho and Christian and Hart Dynasty, and we were in the arena in Toronto, and we were like, we just for some reason we kept retreating in and out of the ring or whatever, doing the heel thing, and I just stepped up and grabbed the ropes and just stepped up onto the apron, tore my groin. And I remember and I had a spot with Harry Smith, and I'm like, I can't run. Why can't I run? It was just the weirdest thing. I'm like, I can't run for some reason. And
Oh,
sure enough, I got out of the ring, went to the trainer, and he's like, your groin is torn. My freaking right quad was like the size of a watermelon and it was purple. I was like, oh my God. So
yeah.
then I had to put on the sleeve. Like, I don't, if you go back around that time, there was a point where I was wearing my trunks, but I had this sleeve on my right thigh. And I couldn't, like, as the Nexus were running to the ring, I would always lag behind them. I would limp behind them. So
Mm.
they tried to cover it that I couldn't run. And then right after that was the forearm deal with Cena. And then so my forearm was fractured. And then right after that, we had the gauntlet match where I hyperextended my left knee. So I had a bone bruise in my left knee. My right groin was torn in my right leg. I had a fractured forearm. And then right after that was my last match where it was me and Cena. We tagged with, we worked with Mark Henry and Evan Bourne. And then he had slammed me on the steps a couple times. So I ended up with a slip disc in my lower back and my right calf was torn. So
Jeez.
I barely I crawled out of the ring and they had to carry me to the back. I've never been more pain in my life.
Wow.
So yeah. And I ended up back in FCW and never took a day off, trained 4 times a day, rehab myself
Hmm.
and got in the best shape of my life and would go to Johnny and beg him, just give me a dark match, give me a dark match. Let me show you what I can do. Like I was working with Ricky Steamboat and Norman Smiley and Dr. Tom and Joey Matthews. Like they were just really working with me, like getting my ring work up. Like Norman was showing me a bunch of British strong style stuff, like Jim Breaks and Steve Gray and Johnny Saint stuff like that. And I was like doing all kind of. Norman gave me like a dozen DVDs, like British wrestling,
Yeah.
and I would study that stuff. And then I ended up back on TV. Dusty came up with a gimmick, and I was like a sports agent type of thing because Johnny was saying they wanted to make me a manager because I could talk, and I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
want to be a manager, but okay, like
Yeah.
I,
Do what you're
that's
told, I guess, right?
exactly that's you like just get back on TV, just get back on TV. I said, okay, yes, sir. So I got back on TV. I would appear backstage, and there was like a gimmick with me and Alberto Del Rio, one with me and Miz and Alex Riley, and one with me and I want to say Vicky Guerrero. I love her. She's so awesome. Uh, Dolph Ziggler, and it was the deal where somebody had knocked out Teddy Long, and I, for whatever reason, was randomly in that in that segment. I don't know why, but like Vince and I were doing a lot of work backstage. He was working with me one on one, doing promos. Yeah, so another crazy story. So you've been there, so you know how Vince
Hmm.
pre-show is always standing by the ring,
Hmm.
doing all of the control work and all of that clockwork. Every Monday and Tuesday, or Sundays, he's standing by the ring, checking all of the cameras and everything like that. Well, he started ditching that to do one-on-one work with me in pre-tapes,
What?
and
Wow.
that was unheard of apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I remember they brought back who was Umaga's manager? What was his name?
Oh man.
Armando Estrada was his
Yeah,
name, I think.
Armando Estrada. That's right.
Armando Estrada. And they brought him back, and him and I were working together.
Hmm.
And Vince was doing promo work with him and I, just no one was allowed. It was just Brawler. I think Brooklyn Brawler was doing the pre-tape, so he was there. He would work it and all of that. But it was just me and Brawler and Armando Estrada and Vince, and we were just for hours just doing promos after promo after
Wow.
promo. And I got so much heat for that. I was like, it wasn't my decision. Yeah,
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute because I mean, you
yeah,
mentioned you're getting heat doing all these different segments that you don't have any control over. Who are
yeah,
you getting? I
yeah,
mean, obviously you're getting heat with the boys backstage, but is anyone
yeah, yeah.
saying anything to you? Is there anyone coming to you and being like, "Yo, why you?" or "What's going on?" or "What's
What?
the situation?"
It was never direct. It was
Okay,
never direct. Yeah. So
sure.
they would. A lot of people would come up to me and would tell me hey, there's big plans for you. Like there's a lot of people very impressed with you. There's people just keep your head up because everyone saw that I had heat with one person in particular. Everyone saw it,
Okay.
and it was obvious. Like backstage, like it was just relentless, relentless. I don't want to use the word bullying because I'm not a victim, but it was just relentless. And I stood up for myself. There were times where he would take liberties in the ring, so I would give him some knuckles in the ring, and I had to defend myself. It's just part
Right.
of how it is. Somebody, they take liberties. You don't let them walk all over you. So
Does this person have a name, or are we gonna name him, or are we gonna leave him nameless for now?
oh, everyone knows who it is. You just can't see him.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So it was Cena. I don't have any heat with Cena now. I make jokes about it. But
Okay.
yeah, there was a target on my back. I don't know why he targeted me, but I mean, it is what it is. But we ended up on good terms. And
Oh,
he
that's
is,
good at least.
yeah, we ended up on good terms. But um, yeah, I had to defend myself a lot. But
Wow.
yeah, a lot of just everyone was high on me, and then all of a sudden they all turned on me. And I'm like, why all like people wouldn't shake my hand, they wouldn't speak to me all of the top guys. I'm like, I go shake their hands and they would just fade me in front of everybody. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do?
Right.
And I thank God for like Booker T and like Mark Henry and Teddy Long. They would pull me aside a lot. Mark Henry would pull me aside a lot. And like, hey, look, this is what's happening. Just weather the storm. You got heat right now. Just weather the storm. Blah blah blah. It's that. He would give me MVP. Another one. He would give me really good advice. Like, hey, just weather the storm. Matt Hardy was always really cool. I was like, all right, thank you guys. I appreciate it. It's like you're only getting this kind of heat because there's something there. So just
Right.
weather the storm.
Well,
And
were some of the other guys within Nexus getting that heat too, or was it just specifically on you?
kind of, they weren't getting the same heat that I was getting, but
Okay.
it was a lot of divide and conquer because
Okay.
we were like eating up all of the TV time, and it wasn't us; it was how we were being booked,
Right.
But we were eating up all the TV time, and it was just for a good month and a half, it was the Monday Night Nexus, which they beat that beat it, beat it senseless. They could have, but whatever, that's just how WWE does things. I'm not complaining. I'm thankful for it, but
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, there was a lot of like backstage. So Vince would do promo class for
Uh-huh.
the main roster the same way Dusty did, and he would, it was all of the cameras are set up, and all of the talent would be like all of the top talent too, but be sitting there in the in the rooms at the tables, all the cameras going and all of that, and we'd have to take notes and everything, right? And I remember they would always call out. Was this when we first went to NXT? No, it was Nexus. So they would call one of us, Vince would call one of us up to do a promo. So then we would all get up and go up together because they wanted us to do everything together, like
Oh,
literally
that's cool.
everything. Yeah. And so it just became a gimmick. Like we had to wear the armbands everywhere, to the gym, to the hotel room. If we got caught out like in the shoot world without the armband, we were going to get heat. So we had to wear the armbands everywhere we went, which ended up being freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was brilliant. But so Vince would do the promos and promo classes, and I remember he was like working so hard to get Brian Danielson's promos better. Like that was just his pet project, and
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't really that good at talking. He's amazing now, but
Yeah.
he just wasn't comfortable with it. And Vince was like just working hard, just calling Brian up left and right. I'm like, freaking the best promo guy here, other than Wade Barrett. So I'm like, all right, I got to do something. So I started interrupting his promo class, and I would get up and just walk right in front of the class and walk right up next to Vincent, interrupt him, and he would look at me, and I said, "Give me a word." And I always said, "Give me a word, a random word." And I remember he was like, "Tarver wants to cut a promo." I was like, "Okay," and everybody's like, "This guy's about to bury himself." So he would give me a word, and I remember one in particular. He just said, "Okay, antenna." And I'll never forget that was the word he gave me. So I made up this story. I don't know. I made up this story. I can't really remember the story, but I made up this story about my ex-wife and I were leaving the show after the show, and somebody tried to rob us, and I ended up using the antenna to fight it. I don't know, but I got a standing ovation,
Wow.
and so every time, like every week, they would do the promo class. I would interrupt, and then it turned into a thing where they were waiting for me to interrupt, and I would get a standing ovation every time. And then Freddie Prinze Jr. was there at the time, and he was doing workshops with the talent to help them. They're selling and acting, so it was invite only, but I would walk in anyway, and I would do the exact same thing. And I remember there was one time I did this. impromptu spoken word promo. It's the best way I can describe it. And I just, interrupted, and Freddie Prinze was like, I want to try something. He said, sure, okay. So I did this super aggressively emotional, like really up and down spoken word kind of promo, and got a standing ovation. And then there would be the workshop, and then there would be promo class right after workshops, and then we'd have to go straight to the promo class. And I'll never forget that day. Triple H was doing the class that day, and so Hunter's doing the class, and I think he told me in front of everybody, he's like, I want to call Tarver. Tarver, come here. So I'm like, okay. So I get up. I'm like, I'm ready to go. He said, I heard you did something in the freaking whatever something the promo class thing with Freddie Prinze. Do it again. Can you do it again? I was like, okay. So then I did it again in front of everyone, and everyone's like, oh my God, standing ovation, standing ovation. And I remember having a conversation with Freddie Prinze Jr. afterwards, and he was like, that was amazing. He's like, dude, you need to get into acting. Like, you leave wrestling and get into acting. Like, that's what I want to do. He's like, that is amazing. Yeah,
what
he kept saying that. Oh my! Oh, so it gets even funnier. So he was like, man, that promo, how long did it take you to write that? I might have buried myself, but I told him that was improv. I didn't write that. He said, what? He was almost insulted because he thought I was like being cocky, but it was true. I literally made it up. I used to be a battle rapper. So like, that's my thing, was making up stuff as I go. And I told him, I was like, dude, I used to be a battle rapper. Like that's what I do, is I freestyle. I made that up on the spot, and I just memorize it as I do it, and I lock it in, and then I can repeat it from there. That's just, for some reason, my brain works phonetically. I can imitate something, I can hear it and then imitate it and do it. It's just weird. So, and he was like, he didn't believe me. It was just, he was almost insulted. He's like, there's no way. I was like, no, that was improv. And then it just started becoming like legendary, like the promos, and then everyone was nice to me again. Like, it was weird. And then I got fired.
What was the reasoning behind the firing? Do you know, or do they even, I mean, I don't know how your future endeavors work. Do they give you a reason necessarily?
No. So the strange thing is, okay, so I think it was because of heat. It was because of heat. There was some really uncool stuff going on. And there was, in this particular part, I won't name names, but there was one talent who I was really, really, really cool with, who was being harassed by another talent who I wasn't cool with. And this talent would come to me like, how do I handle this? I was like, I don't know, but all right, here's try this. And I was trying to help, her out. Like, this is what you do, just, I don't know, I'll be supportive as I can, but, and I ended up getting heat because my name came up, and, I got in the way of the one talent trying to, harass this other talent. And so before that happened, this is when Kong debuted, and the little guy. Oh, she's so sweet. I love her. Kia, I love her.
Yes.
But this is when she debuted as Karma, and that was when they started doing those really cool vignettes. And the other one too, the dude from Mexico, can't remember his name, but they did those super cool vignettes. So I was like, okay, watch this. So I hired a videographer here in Tampa. We put together this really cool vignette, and then the poem promo thing I did as my promo for the vignette. And it was literally the exact same thing as they would. I put the WWE logo in it. It was like a coming soon, Michael Tarver, blah blah blah, whatever, and I remember I put it on DVDs, and I pressed up like 24 copies, and I had a portable DVD player, and I showed up to SmackDown taping in Orlando and walked around handing DVDs to every talent relations, everybody in creative. I was like, watch this. I did my own vignettes. All you got to do is push play, put me in the ring. And they were like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So I went, so I went to Johnny, and I handed one to Johnny. He said, all right, kid, we're going to watch this. So just give me a minute, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I remember that night I saw Cena, and I walked up to Cena, and I saw him in the arena, and I walked up to him. I said, I would like to talk to you. I said, I want to talk to you. And he said, okay, no problem, because there was a lot of heat between us. He said, okay, no problem. I wasn't expecting it. I figured he was going to just blow me off. So after that happens, I remember I walk up to Vince's office, and I was in his office not more than maybe a minute, because I really understood what he was preaching. Like, you got 1 minute to make an impact. When you cut a promo, match is promo, promo's a match. It starts high. You start high, you go low, bring them back high, and finish with a cliffhanger, leaving them wanting more. So I'm like, translation, that's how you communicate in big business as well.
Okay.
So I knock on his door, and who is it? I told him it was me. So he opens the door, because we already had a rapport. I walk in, I said, sir, he said, can I help you? I said, I took the liberty of filming my own vignettes and my own promos. I said, I pressed them up on DVDs. All you have to do is put these in, put me in the ring and push play. I guarantee you'll be impressed, and I will be one of your top guys. And he just looked at me. He was like, okay, kid, thanks for the initiative. I said, there's more where that came from. Shook his hand, walked out. Wasn't in the office for more than a minute. Okay. And then right after that, Johnny pulls me aside. He was like, I heard you just talk to Vince. I said, I sure did. He said, come on, kid, let's watch these DVDs. So I was like, okay. We sit and watch it, and his mouth dropped. He's like, oh my God, I didn't know you were doing this. I'm like, yeah, dude, I've been doing this in FCW for the past 6 months, waiting for you to call me back up to the road. But yeah, sure, no problem, Johnny. He's like, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, thanks. And then we ended up, I think that was still like, could you please give me a dark match now? Like, let me show you what I can do.
Yeah, right.
And I had lost like 20 pounds. I was like ripped in the best, there was like freaking abs everywhere, like best shape of my life. Like I was FCW, like doing 3 or 4 or 5 like blow up drills back to back, and just doing 10 matches. I'd sit in the ring with like, it would be like Norman and all of the Steamballs guys. I just get in the ring. I'm like, feed me people. And I'd have like 10 matches back to back. Like just, it was freaking, I was in the best shape of my life, man. And then Cena and I ended up having that he tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, you want to talk? I said, yep, let's talk. So, we had the conversation, and I remember saying to him, I said, I want to say 2 things. I want to say thank you, and I want to apologize. And he said, really? So I basically said, whatever I did to get heat, I made rookie mistakes. I don't know. I'm going to be humble, and I'm going to apologize. And he said, okay. I said, I want to thank you for teaching me how to work on this grand stage in front of all these people. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I watched your matches when we were at the Lumberjacks and all of the house shows, and you were working with Sheamus. I watched how you were able to manipulate the crowd, how you were able to do the smallest little things and make the crowd, basically 20,000 people, do whatever you wanted them to do. I said, it clicked with me then. And he said, okay. And he just, I guess that resonated with him. He was like, now you get it. And I said, I'd like to have a match with you. I think I'm ready to have a match with you. He said, I think you are. I said, I think now we can dance. And I was like, I would love that. He said, okay, good. You get it now. Good. Welcome to the show. Shook my hand, walked off. And I'm like, finally, it's working. It's going to happen. Finally, 2 weeks later, I get this.
Oh, what a nightmare.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
I mean, let's talk about like stuff you've been doing since then. Because I mean, obviously you do independence, and you've been doing that for many years. But I mean, you are also, you mentioned the battle rapping. You do rap. Like, I follow you on Instagram. I see everything that you're doing. I mean, not only the rapping are you doing, but you're also doing powerlifting. And I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, it was the end of February, I do believe. You broke a record. I wrote it down because it's not like something I'm super, into and know a lot about. So I wrote it down. But you got the USPA Florida national record for deadlifting 733 pounds for the age of 40 to 44 in the 275 weight class.
Yes.
That's a record. Like, and I know you hold many records in powerlifting.
A couple of them,
yeah. So how do you lift that much?
Oh man. So
I mean, that's as generic as I could get with it, but I mean, 733 pounds. I mean,
it's a lot of training and a lot of anger from the wrestling business, but Oh my goodness. I basically got into powerlifting because I was pissed off about wrestling, but I
Wow.
love powerlifting. I love it so much. But I have two national deadlift records, two state deadlift records. I have one world record, deadlift world record, and one world championship, one deadlift and one world championship. As far as I won my division 2 years ago in Canada for
Amazing.
wrestling. Yeah, but yeah, it's I love powerlifting. I love it so much.
How did, I mean, you said obviously you filtered your anger from pro wrestling into it, but how did
Yeah,
you get into that? I mean, because you've always been a big guy, you've always
yeah,
stand out because you
yeah,
are not, I mean, everybody in the 90s, you think wrestling, you think the
yeah,
big tall guys with muscles
yeah,
upon muscles upon muscles. When
yeah,
you're there, it's not necessarily that, although
yeah,
a lot of people still are, but yeah,
yeah.
like Daniel Bryan would be a great example.
Great example. Yeah,
He's a small guy, he
yeah,
doesn't have
yeah.
muscles on muscles on muscles, and
Right.
he's not very tall. So
Yeah.
how does all of this transition besides the anger from wrestling?
So well, when we were there, when I was still at WWE, right before we debuted NXT, they had all of the guys for NXT start training at John Cena's personal gym here in Florida. And he has a really, really cool gym actually. And so his personal gym, they sent us all there, which was part of a job. We had to report there. And they had a strength and conditioning coach who John Cena works with. And he basically put us on this strength and conditioning bulking program, and we like all put on like freaking a couple pounds of muscle and got jacked up and huge, and
Mm,
right before our debut, like had us looking amazing before we debuted, like got all muscled up and it was crazy. That was when I got introduced to powerlifting
okay.
and lifting there with them, and I just kind of was really interested in it. And then once I got released in 2011, I continued training, doing the typical bodybuilding training to
Mhm.
stay in wrestling shape. And then, things kind of went south for me personally, but then I just kind of filtered all of that into powerlifting. And I remember it was like 2013 or 2014, I just got an idea like, you know what, why don't I try powerlifting?
Mhm.
And I started looking it up online and um, just researching or whatever. And then just started kind of watching different lifters and just tried teaching myself. And then in 2015, I ended up meeting like a career powerlifter in Tampa, which I didn't know, which I know now. Florida's a huge powerlifting hub.
Okay.
And oh yeah. And I met him at a gym and he invited me to, and he was asking me, like, hey, you're a big guy. What do you do? I said, well, I'm training to be a powerlifter. He's like, oh, really? So I've been powerlifting for 20 years. I'm like, really? So he invited me to his gym and then I ended up joining his team. And I had my first competition in 2015 and I trained with that team till about 2017. 2017, and I joined another team um, where the coach is like this. He's like one of the greatest powerlifters of all time. And his name is Tony Conyers. He's like freaking. He would be like a Ric Flair of freaking powerlifting. Like this guy he's basically he's 150 pounds, and right now he's 61 years old. But he's one of the first powerlifters ever to lift 10 times his body.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that's like he's 148 pounds, 158 pounds, squatting over 600 pounds, deadlifting over 600 pounds, and benching over 400 pounds. And he's 150 pounds. And
Jesus.
he's still doing that in his 60s, drug free,
That's
So he's like,
crazy.
yeah, and so that's why I love powerlifting is when you see people and the women as well. There's amazing women as well. But there's when I saw that, I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do, and it was, like the equivalent of being trained in wrestling by like a legend trainer.
Mhm.
And I'm on a different team now. But he just became a mentor and just helped me along and taught me so much, and I learned a lot, and it helped me to get through and get over some of the things I went through with wrestling, and I continued to wrestle. Did some international stuff, and but now I don't work so much as more anymore. I had a couple things coming up, but maybe no, a couple times that's good enough for me. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's crazy because like there's still like so many other things like I had like wrote down to talk to you about, but I mean,
Oh yeah.
I'm getting close on time, but like
Yeah.
Crazy. Like I love, love, love all the stories that you shared with us today. Why don't you take a second and put over all your social media, anything else you want to put
Sure.
over? If you have any events coming up in say May or later on in the year, put those over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So all my social media is at Monster Tarver. Twitter, Instagram. I have a Facebook fan page as well as TikTok. Don't judge me.
I see those TikToks on your Instagram.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, I feel so old. But yeah, so they're all, they're all there. And I have music, a couple of mixtapes you can find in the bio of my Instagram as well. I have a store at Pro Wrestling Tees. I still currently work for Home Shopping Network as an on-air guest. A couple of the powerlifting, and yeah, there's a few other things. Something pretty big coming that I can't talk about until it gets
Oh,
announced.
you gotta leave us
Yeah,
hanging
yeah.
like that.
I have to. I hate that I have to, but it'll be announced in May,
Let me guess.
April and May.
Let me guess. Nexus is coming back to WWE.
No. No. Yeah, that would be great. That would be great, but it's not wrestling related. It's not wrestling.
Ah, damn.
Yeah.
All right.
That would
Well,
be great.
Tyrone, Michael Tarver, Monster Tarver, however you want to be addressed. It has been great having you on. Such a blast to catch up with you. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do next.
It is my pleasure. So good talking to you. And I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
I remember all of those days back in freaking Shamrock. Do you remember? I'm gonna like embarrass myself. Do you remember? I used to have such a crush on you. Do you remember?
Oh my
Do you
God,
remember
no,
that?
I did not know that.
Do you remember that?
No.
Oh my God! You know, we used to talk all the freaking time back in the Shamrock.
We were very close.
We were really cool. Yeah, I had such a freaking crush on you back then. I can't remember. You don't remember. I can't believe you don't remember that. It's so funny. Yeah, like we were always really cool though. I always liked you. You were just really cool. But yeah, that's so funny. I can't believe you don't remember that. Now I'm embarrassed. But
well, thank you.
That's so funny.
Flattered from like almost 20 years ago.
20 years ago, right? Yeah, that's so funny though. I really did. It's so funny. But like, you were always so cool. But like it was cool. I'm so proud of you. Man, you've just come so far. Like it just and done so well for yourself. And I'm so happy for you. You know, like I remember meeting your husband. Your husband seems so cool, man. Like I'm just so happy for you. So happy.
Best. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and I see you in your family, your kids that you have doing. They're doing their own big things too. On top of that, it's crazy. Like I love seeing everybody that I know being successful in their own ways.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the episode. I am here with pro wrestling historian and author of The Wrestler's Wrestler, which came out this week. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you guys can get wherever you buy your favorite books from. Dan Murphy. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. What do you mean sticking around? Everybody, this is the main event. I mean,
I
people
know,
don't bail out of this early. They have to wait for the main event. I mean, everything else is just
about the other person. No,
everyone else is curtain jerking. You know, that's
exactly
how it is.
Curtain jerking.
Right here. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me back.
Always. You are always a delight to have on.
All right. Well, today what I wanted to really kind of talk about, I know every month we kind of do something that happened that month in women's wrestling history. And for April, I was looking at a few different things. April's had a lot of things that have happened in women's wrestling. Obviously, April of 2019, you had WrestleMania. So the women headlining WrestleMania for the first time ever. Just a few weeks ago, the women headlining night one of the two-night WrestleMania with Bianca Belair and Sasha. But I wanted to go back to something a little bit more kind of, I don't want to say obscure, but something I find interesting. Almost 30 years ago, April 2nd, 1993, in Japan, All Japan Women put on their All-Star Dream Slam event. It was to celebrate All Japan Women's 25th anniversary, and they ran a show at Yokohama Arena that ended up drawing 16,500 fans for a women's wrestling show.
That's great.
Exactly. It was the first ever $1 million women's wrestling show gate. It drew $1.2 million.
That's amazing.
Right, absolutely. And it really showed the world that women can draw. The main event was Akira Hokuda versus Shinobu Kanduri. And just a little bit about these two in this match, which is up on YouTube. After you're done watching this podcast, maybe go over there and check it out, but not now, after.
Yeah.
It's a classic. Akira Hokuda came in. This is what Dave Meltzer wrote about her at the time. I mentioned a little bit about this in my book, Sisterhood of the Squared Circle. Meltzer wrote about Akira Hokuda. She had become one of the most popular wrestlers in the country because of her gutsy history of working with severe injuries and her ability to make matches dramatic that greatly exceeded almost any woman wrestler in history. So she'd always wrestle injury and had this kind of warrior fighting spirit, this kind of Antonio Inoki type quality. Mm-hmm. She was going in against Shinobu Kanduri, who had done some mixed martial arts and had some death matches against Megumi Kudo in FMW. And the two of them went out there for this main event of Dream Slam and went just a shade under 30 minutes. And this double bloody match got a 5-star ranking from Dave Meltzer. Incredible match that Hokuda won, just in one of the most cinematic finishes that you'll ever see in wrestling. Hokuda kind of connects with an elbow, and both of them just slump to the mat exhausted, and Hokuda manages to just crawl over and make the cover. Incredible match that's out there. Drew, like I said, 16,500. And what that match did, it really kind of raised the bar even higher for All Japan Women and women's wrestling in general. 16 months later, what would end up happening is All Japan would have their huge Big Egg Wrestling Universe show in November of 1994. That would draw, depending on the count and who's counting, between 32,000 and 42,000 fans. It still holds the record as the biggest women's wrestling show of all time. In fact, I have the program for it right here.
Oh, that's amazing.
You thought so? I thought you'd dig that. Yeah.
I dig all sorts of stuff like that. The old school wrestling memorabilia. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's super cool. And something very neat about that, just as a little interesting aside, if you can make that out. You see who that is?
Is that Tonya Harding?
Tonya Harding, that's it. All Japan Women. All Japan Women was trying to do a huge angle because Tonya Harding was so notorious.
Yes.
They were trying to bring her in. They were trying to teach her how to wrestle and have her do a match. It all fell apart. But again, in the program of this event that drew between 32 and 42,000 people, they had a full page in the program hyping the arrival of Tonya Harding of all people, and it never quite developed. But
that's crazy. I love that though.
Yeah, it's very cool. All Japan Women obviously had such a huge influence on women's wrestling, and as much as everybody thinks of the women's revolution, and which is fantastic, everything that's happened in WWE over the past 7-6 years has been terrific. But if you really go back to the 80s and 90s with All Japan Women, it's really an incredible time for wrestling.
I love that. And I love the little Tonya Harding reference. Who would have thought she would ever be somewhat involved with wrestling, even though it didn't pan out? But you said she did train a little bit, right?
She wanted to train. I don't think she ever got in the ring. Okay. I know that they did send her. She did a match. I believe it was a match with Conan. And I think it was in Mexico, but it could have been in the Pacific Northwest. It was probably Mexico. But she was the corner person for a match that Conan was involved in.
That's a big difference.
Exactly. And I think what they did is they set a chair down, and she literally sat, and like no contact, no anything, but she was there. But All Japan Women at one point wanted to, she was a Olympian, an athlete. They thought they could train her for a couple spots,
For sure.
Never worked out.
That would have been probably the scandal of the 90s after, of course, her with Nancy Kerrigan.
Absolutely. Especially if she's headlining a show with 30,000 fans showing up. Yeah. But natural heat.
For sure. Especially with Americans. I don't know the Japanese would care as much, but Americans would be all over that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is one of the reasons she apparently decided in the end not to do it. But I think she was also afraid of injury. All Japan Women were pretty notoriously tough.
Intense. Definitely. Wow. I love that kind of stuff, man. One day I'm going to, maybe not on our segment here, but one day I'll show you some of the old programs and stuff that I have from like back in the 80s and stuff like that my parents kept from when they went to wrestling shows. I love looking back at that kind of stuff. So it's really cool.
Recently uncovered, I've got the bookcases behind me here, a couple over here and a couple over there. So I've got a lot of wrestling stuff in, especially. I uncovered about, I don't know, 2 scrapbooks, 2 kind of binders full of old autographs and everything. And I was never a big autograph person, but from when I was a little kid. And, you know, just between the programs and the autographs and things from, you know, Kerry Von Erich signing an autograph and Brutus Beefcake and all this crazy, the British Bulldogs. There's a ton of stuff. So
I bet there's some people who would pay some money for some of those autographs now too, especially since some of those have since passed on.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's what makes them special.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. All right, Dan, that was awesome. I can't wait to, well, actually in May, once I get my book, hopefully, I want to have you on the show, and we're just going to do a special episode all about your books, that book, The Wrestler's Wrestler specifically. And I can't wait to talk to you. Don't forget, go buy these books wherever you can. They're available on Amazon if you don't want to go out and physically buy it. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And I hope everybody enjoys the books.
Definitely. All right, guys, until next time.